The Magnificent Seven is what they like to call themselves. What will 7 potential ACC schools do when they secede from this ACC union? We'll talk about the Magnificent Seven. We'll talk about the grant of right deals. We'll talk about the realignment and what kind of summer we're looking at here for Jim Phillips in the conference.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So what seemed to be a deal that ran through 2036 is something that 7 ACC schools are trying to re-examine with their lawyers and figure out how to get out of it. Could the ACC be the end as we know it? Welcome to Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack and Locked On ACC. Each and every day you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. We always appreciate it when you stop by the show and subscribe to our YouTube channel and download wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Kenton, nice to have you back, friend. Hate doing shows by myself.
Well, I'm glad to be back. I spent a little time traveling and seeing family and whatnot, but I'm excited to be back.
Love that for all of us. Now, we are talking through the ACC Magnificent Seven, so they call themselves. They're examining the grant of rights deal and considering leaving the ACC as a part of this new wave of realignment and what have you. Now, just the thought of 7 teams, literally half of the ACC, deciding that they could potentially secede from the current league. What were your initial thoughts when that popped out?
I mean, I don't really see it as somebody has to be wrong. Somebody has to be very wrong here because all that we heard about the grant of rights is that it was airtight, like airtight. All I heard was, hey, there is nothing these teams can do. Even if they paid the exit fee, they would still have to pay out partially to the ACC, or the ACC would still retain rights throughout the entire or throughout a large chunk of what the contract is set for. So is that incorrect? Have folks been lying to us all along about how ironclad this thing is? Or are these universities lying to themselves and saying, oh, we're going to succeed? Let me tell you something. The ACC runs all the way across the Eastern Seaboard. And for those of us below the Mason-Dixon line in particular, history books say secession doesn't go well down here. So if you're wrong and you're lying to yourself, then congratulations, secession will not go well again. Okay, so, just something to think about there.
This week in Amelia Island, administrators from the ACC are down there gathering for spring meetings, talking through what will come of, potentially this summer, going into this fall, and potentially next 2 or 3 years. Everyone's running and chasing, trying to be in the SEC and the Big Ten. We understand what their TV right deals are. We understand what kind of money that they're bringing in. And potentially with this grant of rights deal over the next 13 years, the ACC could see a $30 million gap between the SEC and the Big Ten. Now, you say that, okay, $30 million difference between each school, all the things. It sounds like very stressful. In my opinion, how much better, are they making the facilities better where people are practicing, therefore their players are going to be better, so they're automatically going to win all these championships, national championships? I'm talking about, when you hear, hey, there's more money for schools, is that the immediate, okay, they're just doing it to continue to elevate their facilities, elevate, who they get to come to these schools? What is it ultimately?
Ultimately, it's they have more viewers, therefore they get better TV deals. That's ultimately what it is. If we're talking the ACC teams, even though you are in partially SEC country, the viewership just is not the same, which then puts you in a bad situation. And the negotiation behind these deals is not the same, because even if you were to say, when you look at the chasm, right? When you say 30 million, that sounds one alarm as far as wow, that's a huge gap. But put it in percentage terms, right? when you do the revenue sharing and how much each university gets, that's where you truly understand how big is the gap between these conferences. And I believe that there is, I believe that it's like 100% of what the ACC makes is the difference between these schools. So, I mean, you're not looking at a good situation here. Like, objectively speaking, you're not looking at a great situation, because if you're looking at a situation where each team in the ACC is making about $33 million and the Big Ten and the SEC are making 40 to 50 million, I apologize, it's not 100%, but you're looking at what, 2/3? So that's what, a 60% increase? Like, that's the problem. You cannot have that big of a chasm, because I'm sure that the SEC and Big Ten don't see 60% more viewers across the board. Now, if they do, hey, the game is the game. You got to live with how you live. But I don't think that the viewership chasm is that big to warrant a 60% difference in revenue sharing.
And for the people who don't know, ACC have grant of rights deal with ESPN. So per the grant of rights, each ACC school gives ownership of its broadcasting rights to the league in that deal. And so all of that to say, it's up until 2036. By the time we're all old and gray and probably have our kids going through these respective schools, it's just a long time to be stuck in a deal that's not going to ultimately get you competing with the best of them. Now you have the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC. A lot of people are saying they just need to just blow them three up and figure out how to make a super team and go ahead and try and compete with the Big Ten and the SEC. Why would that be insane, Kenton?
Why wouldn't it be? Anytime you're saying blow a thing up, like everybody loves to say blow things up and revolution and all that in theory. Put this into practice. Let us think about these words that we're saying, right? And I hate to be that guy that's like, language means things, and I'm a comm major, but I have to be that guy right now. When you're blowing up established infrastructure, you are taking a massive leap of faith that the new infrastructure is as strong, if not stronger, than the old infrastructure. So let's run a worst case scenario on blowing it up, shall we? All three of these conferences blow it up and say that they're going to form a super conference. Well, a super conference still sees you $10 million behind, potentially, right? They get together and they still see a $10 million gap, because, mind you, even if you blow these conferences up, you can't go to ESPN and say, hey, because we blew the conferences up, you now have to renegotiate all of our deals. ESPN is going to look at y'all and say the devil is a lie. We agreed with these entities as a unit, and as teams, as individuals, y'all were part of that collective. You can't blow that up and say, oh, we want more now because they're making more. But let's just say you could do that, right? Let's just say you go back to ESPN and you negotiate something that gets you close. It doesn't get you there, but it gets you close. If you're $5-10 million short, you blew everything up, and the new contract has language in it to say, well, hey, teams could leave if they want to, if they still decide that the super conference doesn't work out for them. Well, if you're still $5 to $10 million behind, why wouldn't they just go ahead and head on out the door again? Yeah. Like, people are acting as if you pull those threes money together and then you no longer have to divide it by 3 to every conference still. Like, that's not, so 100%. Stop blowing it up. This isn't Mad Max. Blowing things up, this isn't a Michael Bay film. Blowing things up does not work all the time. It's not the solution all the time.
Well, a couple of things there, right? At the end of the day, I understand sports is king for a lot of people, and athletics is, the cash cow for a lot of things. But at the end of the day, these are universities, right? These are, prominent universities where not everyone plays a sport. Not everyone cares about going to the games. Some people be mad about their fees coming out of their tuition that has to pay for said things, right? So there's people who actually don't care about sports. So imagine them having to try and figure out what life looks like for them in regards to, being in different conferences, and maybe they have to, cross-pollinate with certain schools who they used to work with hand in hand because they had some ACC deal where, like, Duke and Carolina have, gift and fundraisers that they do in order to help raise money for certain charities. Cool. Now they don't really have that because there's no ACC challenge or whatever it is. You have the ACC Big 12 challenge that doesn't exist. Things like that can potentially raise money for, certain issues. Cool. Also, if I'm, on the ACC and now I'm like, let's add a Utah. someone from North Carolina, I ain't trying to go to Utah to swim for 2 hours and then have to fly all the way back and also be a student athlete. So I think if I am a person who works in admin for athletics and athletic universities, I would be stressed out right now. I would be terrified at the idea of chartering planes across the country seasonally for non-revenue sports.
This is the same reason that the Cold War stayed cold is pretty much going to happen here. Cooler heads generally prevail, and there's a thing called the total sum of annihilation. And granted, I know some of y'all are saying, Ken, that's very dramatic because the total sum of annihilation is about nukes, and if everybody uses theirs, boom, there's no more life. But look at this in terms of sports, right? If the ACC, let's say the Magnificent Seven finds a way, okay?
Yeah.
They get their wish, and they find a way out of here. All 7 of y'all think y'all gonna land in a conference that's gonna pay you better? Really?
Hold that thought, Kenton. Hold that thought right there. Because Slam Tater says something that we're going to have to segue, but I want to make sure we get here. What I don't understand is these teams want to leave a different conference for other than the money. They should realize they won't be elevated over the SEC, Big 10, or Big 12 regular champs. So glad you guys are talking about these because I want to go ahead and name the Magnificent Seven. I want to make sure we all sit here and have some honest conversations about those 7 and also have some honest conversations about some of the guys who probably said, now, why am I not in it when it's all said and done? But first, I want to remind you guys that if you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, and you got to try Built Bar. It's healthy and tastes amazing. It's 100% covered in real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate, churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. Not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros, only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. You can find that at your local Walmart or Sam's Club or built.com. 3 options for you, all delicious opportunities for you to get a great tasting treat. We're rocking and rolling here. We're talking through the grant of rights deal, leaving the conference, realignment, all the things that we had last summer that clearly are right in front of our face. And they have never been more prominent because it was revealed by Ross Dellenger from Sports Illustrated that 7 schools are considering leaving the conference for good. So the Magnificent Seven, we'll call them. They'll probably be, go down to infamy. Clemson, FSU, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. They are considering meeting up with, not considering, they've met with lawyers and are figuring out how airtight this grant of rights deal is and what they could potentially do to leave. Now, when you look at these schools, right, they're nice little pockets. Clemson has been our ACC champ for quite some time. FSU and Miami, historically really great programs for football and the like. UNC and NC State kind of go hand in hand when it comes to just being both public universities and really strong staples for the state of North Carolina. And then you have Virginia and Virginia Tech is sort of the same for Virginia, the state of Virginia. Now, when I look at these, I'm like, okay, if I'm Louisville, I'm upset. I'm feeling away. If I am Pitt, I am feeling away because weren't we just, ACC champions? I'm feeling away that nobody gave me a phone call.
The phone calls probably did go out, but they probably did the sensible thing and laughed and hung up. You're playing chicken with no leverage, Magnificent Seven. What can you all do? What can you feasibly do at this point in time? And here's the thing. I have been wrong in the past. I will be wrong again in the future. I make big predictions. I make big statements, which sometimes turn out to be bigly wrong. Yes, bigly is a word now, thanks to one of our former presidents. Now, with that being said, I don't think I'm wrong here. Mm-hmm. I think that these teams, again, in order to negotiate, in order to do the things that these teams are trying to do, you need some type of leverage, right? As a recruiter, when I am trying to negotiate with a candidate and the candidate says, hey, I want more money, and I'm saying, okay, well, we can't give you more money. I have to have something that makes sense that I can offer them less money. If they have an offer that is for more money, I can't do that, right? If you're a candidate, which is closer to what these teams are, and you're asking for more money, but you don't have the skills to warrant that, or the company just doesn't have it to give. You don't have the leverage you think you have. You don't.
Yeah.
Because guess what? As a candidate, you need to have the option of, will I have another offer on the table? Will I have this conversation on the table? Will I have this going on that I can go ahead and go with? These teams don't have that. You're looking for something, searching for something, grasping at straws, and that's exactly what you do. Grasping at straws because there's nothing here at the moment, at least.
Okay, so like, listen, Clemson, they were just ACC champions. They've been ACC champions for a minute. They're probably tired of the conversation from a football lens. They want more challenge. So challenge. I'm trying to get to a bigger conference and get some more money. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So Clemson would be fair enough to go ahead and figure out the secede. You wouldn't be mad at Clemson succeeding.
No, I don't think it makes sense for any of these teams to succeed. I don't think any of these teams, it would make sense for them to succeed. But if you're asking in terms of like, hey, who actually, so I think that the question you're asking, correct me if I'm wrong here, who actually has the right that I'm not looking at like, now why are you in it? Why are you even having a conversation
and
about
I'm literally going team by team, and I would like to get your reaction. So yes,
okay,
you're spot on.
Clemson, there's a conversation to be had there. There's a conversation to be had.
Florida State hasn't been relevant in quite some time since the Jimbo days. And let's be honest, now y'all all of a sudden have this Heisman level quarterback, Mike Norvell's the man, and now y'all want to go ahead and go for real. Now you know what?
See, and here's the thing. Clemson, based on previous performance, there's a conversation to be had based on like the actual amount of revenue that they would have. Like if you're not winning national championships or competing for national championships every year, they should probably sit this one out. Florida State's on the exact other end of that spectrum. Their performance does not warrant this at all. Sit down and eat your food if you're them.
But they think they're such a big brand.
And I was just about to say the brand. Yeah, they're a massive school with a massive brand. Like their brand gets them over the hump. But if we're talking recent performance, sit down and eat your food, son. You can't get up from the table yet. You ain't ate your vegetables.
People are going to watch bad FSU football for whatever reason. But
yeah, the brand is strong. In the words of the Bodega Boys, the brand is strong.
Miami. We all know they ain't been back for a minute. But this could be Mario Cristobal's year. Things could go their way. So why not entertain it?
They are in a similar boat to Florida State. Very strong brand, performance on the field. Sit down and eat your food as a whole. That's not even. Y'all should be quiet.
You lucky you got a plate. You lucky you got a plate.
In the words of Nicki Minaj, broke people should never laugh. That's what I'm looking at in terms of y'all performance. Bad teams should never succeed. That's what I'm looking at in terms of Miami at the moment.
Miami said, "I'm leaving here with something." Okay.
Well, they can try.
North Carolina.
You already know what I'm saying. You already know what I'm
saying.
When
it comes to basketball, yes, but we all know cash is king in the football lands.
Is basketball what makes the money around here? Is that what keeps the lights on?
For North Carolina, yes. It helps keep the lights on.
Is that what keeps the lights on? I'm talking real spiel.
If I really had to argue it, North Carolina might actually be one of the only universities where basketball could elevate. I'm just saying. Here's
the thing. In terms of ratings, the highest rated college basketball games do not compete with the highest rated college football games. That's just a fact. That is just America loves our football. We do not play about the foot. When it comes to that pig skin, them stars and stripes gonna hit different every time.
But with that being said, North Carolina.
Good for them. Good for them. I'm looking at them the same way I'm looking at. We could go to the next team because it's another team that's in the same boat as them. Hey, more power to you. I hope your basketball team makes you all the money because they're going to have to. But go ahead. There's another team coming up that's in the exact same boat. You know who they are.
I was going to say, when it comes to ratings, North Carolina football might be not as good as North Carolina basketball. Like everyone is coming to see North Carolina basketball. Bar none.
That's fair. That's fair.
Now, North Carolina State. Y'all just seem to be happy that somebody even considered you. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I don't even know how you got here. I would put Pitt and Louisville in the conversation before I put y'all.
Listen, I mean this very genuinely. NC State, I'm saying this as an alumni of the illustrious university, okay? Baby, sit down somewhere.
There's not one without the other. Public universities, there's not one without. There is not. They're a tandem. North Carolina and North Carolina State are a tandem.
And neither one of them should be up here. Neither one of them. Neither one of them. Both of y'all got no right. What are you doing? Go sit down. Go sit down. And here's the thing.
We about to disrespect us.
In terms of the big four sports, in terms of football, basketball, in terms of football, basketball, baseball, women's basketball, NC State is tied for the highest winning percentage over the last, I want to say it's like 4 to 5 years in the ACC. Baby, the brand ain't strong enough, okay? The fact that we joke about UNC fans being Walmart folks, we don't realize what we're actually saying in that is that Walmart carries their stuff more than ours because people just buy it, even if they have no connection to the school, even if the school is not. That's the reality. Now, I just said that UNC don't have the brand to carry, and we don't have the brand that they have.
UNC has the brand to carry. UNC doesn't have the athletic prowess to carry, but UNC's brand, the NC and the Jordan brand, like you got to relax.
The brand is okay. Let me make this very explicit. When I'm saying the brand, maybe you know what? I'm going to say this. Maybe I'm using it incorrectly. The viewership and the brand are hand in hand to me, right? And one of the most viewed NCAA basketball games was the Battle of the Blues that happened in the Final Four. That was almost 18 million viewers. Hey, they did their thing. They absolutely. What I am saying is, number one, that's an NCAA tournament game. That's not just your average Battle of the Blues. That's a Final Four game. There's only 4 teams left playing college basketball when that happened. Number two, when you look around at what is king, when we look around at the real moneymaker, which is football, and we look at the highest rated games, in the words of Magic Johnson, I ain't going to be here, is what UNC and NC State can say.
Yeah, I think you're equating this differently than what is actually like brand recognition, because North Carolina's brand recognition is probably one of the top, I would argue, top 5 in all of college athletics. Like the NC is a thing. Just gonna say
I'm not, but see that, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the brand from a standpoint of like brand recognition. I'm talking the flat brass tacks of it. How many eyeballs will be on the screen? Because cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bills, y'all. And what brings in the dollar bills? Eyeballs watching screens. It don't matter if we can recognize your brand in Switzerland, in Sweden, in America, in Nigeria, in Zimbabwe, in Asia. It does not matter. How many of those eyes get on the screen when you're on the screen, especially for football? And I don't see it.
Okay. Oh, I argue differently, but I hear you and I receive. We still haven't even got the teams that we have. You really catching strays with Virginia and Virginia Tech because you didn't even let me get to them, God dog.
Well, let's get to them then. Let's get to them.
Virginia and Virginia Tech are similar to North Carolina and North Carolina State in that they're one in, hand in hand in terms of public universities. So you can't have one without the other. It's very interesting that these are the two that are in the part of the Magnificent Seven. Because when I think of brands and then when I think of, success on the football field, especially, absolutely not.
Again, when I'm looking at the most watched college football programs in 2022, and I mean this very genuinely. The only team that is in this top 25 in the ACC is Clemson. And this is not, I'm not saying this to say Virginia Tech, because I know UVA and Virginia Tech fans feel like I hate their schools. I don't. I love playing at Lane Stadium. It was one of the best experiences of my life. One of the best experiences of my life. Y'all don't got the brand. Y'all don't have the revenue is not there to make this make sense. It just sit down somewhere. Sit down. And again, this is not me saying that, hey, this is not me saying, if you went to a different conference, you could not make more money. You could. Absolutely. Absolutely. But again, I'm saying the legal battle that you're going to have to go through, potentially having to pay a $100 million payout and still have to pay the ACC on top of that and split the revenue from that other conference because you're not all the way in. Y'all don't have the brand. Y'all don't have it.
Also, it's also to Mark, ESPN would own their home games, right? It's like even if they left. So like it's not even as if you're going to Fox or you're going to CBS and somehow magically you have to show your home games on ESPN with this deal, even if you decide to slide to the left.
I want to make a small correction. Clemson is not the only team in the top 25. Florida State is slightly below them, but after them, it gets real. The hours get very scary for the rest of the ACC. I kid you not. After Florida State, you got
yeah.
Nebraska, Michigan State, Texas A&M, Maryland, Auburn, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Oklahoma State, UCLA, Wisconsin, Iowa, Kentucky, Baylor, Kansas State, Indiana, Illinois, Utah, Washington, Northwestern, Mississippi State, Minnesota, BYU, South Carolina, Navy, a service academy, Washington State, Iowa State, until you get to number 43. And I guarantee you ain't going to guess who number 43 is.
Syracuse.
Mm-mm.
Who?
Oh, they part of 7. I'll give you that. They're part of 7.
North Carolina State. Miami.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it. NC State. Again, when I say it's not about how much you think you can have or how much your fan, how many eyes watch the TV when you're on it? How many, like Slam Tanner said, how many folks are buying your gear? How many people are willing to travel with you and do all that? These teams.
Well, you just said, yeah. Mm-hmm.
These teams, it's not like that. It's just not like that for y'all. It's not. It's not. And again, I'm including NC State in that, who is the 3rd place team. So, I'm not. This ain't me being an NC State homer. But proceed with the rest of the teams.
Well, I think those are the 7 because
okay, I'm sorry.
Magnificent 7. It's okay.
Gotcha.
But here's the real issue when it comes all boiled down to it. I think that who this really hurts is the non-revenue sports athletes. Mm-hmm. Because you're not going to, if you do have a granted rights deal that you're trying to squeak out of, what sport are you going to give away to make sure you can pay for this dealing? Like, what sports are you going to make sure you give away? And then you also have the Title IX issues of what sports you can't give away. So it's just really, it starts to get real dicey real quick. But the real villain in all of this, can we just say, is the ACC network. If they had better hosts, they had better talent, no tea, no shade, because we're all in this thing together. If they had some people that made you want to must-see TV ACC conversations,
absolutely,
we might be having a different ball game and a different conversation.
I think that it's ACC Network and Phillips. I think that those two combined, villains for season 1 and 2, just nasty villains. And also, that is why we said what we said in terms of it's not just about how these teams are performing. It's about who makes you want to watch. Part of what makes you want to watch is the coverage. Like, we can all pretend like everybody's a diehard fan of all these schools and nobody. The coverage is subpar. Therefore, the viewership is going to slack off from, say, having Brett Musburger on your TV talking about your team every week, having a Kirk Herbstreit on your TV talking about your team every week. It's not the same. It's just not.
Yeah. And I just think that ultimately we have 3 different reasons of what potentially ACC could do. We're going to go over that part 2 episode of this because we couldn't all get it in this one episode. But before we go, Kenton, you go ahead and answer your daddy no.
Well, I mean, we literally said if we're basing it on the brand and viewership, Florida State is in the conversation. I don't know what part of that wasn't heard, but I said if we're basing it off performance, that's one thing. But we all know in reality, we're not talking about, well, hey, when's the last time you won an ACC championship? That doesn't matter because, again, NC State is 3rd in viewing. And and this is with all due respect, NC State fans, so don't come at me and say I hate the Pack. I gave 3 tenders for the program. I love the place. I still live in Raleigh now. The reality is we have not pitched a drop since, 79 in terms of winning an ACC championship? Like, so it may have been in the 80s. Either way it goes, it was before I or Candace were born. And that's what the reality is. They're the 3rd place. So while we may not say, oh, this is a team they belong in the conversation via performance, the numbers say that they have a claim, that NC State has a claim here.
Well, I think that ultimately, again, it's Jim Phillips, it's the ACC network, it's ESPN and how much money or what they're investing in the ACC network, which ESPN right now, I mean, didn't they just have a wave of layoffs? Didn't they
Yeah.
just have,
Yep.
really great cuts where they're letting go of probably quality talent? So, like, they're not helping themselves in this argument as well. Like, this is just it's all bad and poor timing. And there has never been a hotter ACC kickoff where Jim Phillips is never probably going to be sweating through his clothes.
As the old saying goes, you can't draw blood from a rock. And at the end of the day, if ESPN doesn't have the money to give, you have to find alternative places to get money from. I mean, that's just the reality. And again, like I said, the whole premise of this, and this is where I will sit and this is where I will stay this whole time. If I am wrong, I'm okay with that. But if I am wrong, but I know that I cannot be wrong with this statement. Somebody's lying. Somebody is not telling the truth. Either these teams are lying to themselves or folks have been lying about how ironclad this grant of rights is. Somebody's not telling the truth.
They've been trying to bully them, Kenton. They've been trying to bully them into staying, saying it's airtight. Maybe that's really
and that's possible. And guess what? If you a bully and you trying to intimidate your prey, and you trying to intimidate the kid that's smaller than you by puffing your chest up and all that, then you're lying. You lying to yourself. So the ACC may be lying to themselves. The school may be lying to themselves. The ACC may be lying to us. The lawyers may be lying to us. Somebody ain't telling the truth here. Somebody is living in either a state of delusion or they trying to trick somebody else. One of the two things is happening.
Last thought here. Twitter, there's been the villain versus the real villain memes going around. And I want you guys to leave us comments. Let us know who you think is the real villain in all of this. Is it the Magnificent Seven trying to get, better shares, trying to get more money, more revenue, and being quote unquote disloyal to the rest of the conference? Or is it, Commissioner Phillips? Is it the grant of rights deal? Is it the fact that there is no hope? Is it ESPN? Is it the network? What is the real issue here?
Is it the teams that are sitting by who are potentially complacent with what is a very bad deal? Who's the villain? Tell us something now.
Tell us something here in our part 2. If you did not watch YouTube, you can listen to it on audio space. Make sure you download, subscribe to the podcast from anywhere you listen. We are going to talk about potential options for the ACC tomorrow about what they can do in terms of realignment, what they should do about the Magnificent Seven and all the things. For Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, we'll see you tomorrow. Until next time.